Hi there. Today we're going to be talking about adding integers together. An integer would be a whole number, positive or negative, and it also includes 0. The process for adding integers is to start by determining if the numbers have the same sign as each other or different signs. So same sign would mean they're both positive or they're both negative. Different signs means one is positive and one is negative, but it doesn't matter if the first one's the positive one or the second one's the positive one. If the numbers have the same sign, the process is you add their absolute values and then you keep that same sign. If the numbers have different signs, the process is to subtract their absolute values and then you keep the sign of the bigger number. So we're going to practice that. Let's look at problem 1. Now this one looks familiar because they're both positive. I'm sure you could have done this problem before learning all this new stuff, but the rules are still going to apply. In problem 1, 8 and 2 have the same sign. They're both positive numbers. So the rule is you add them up and then you keep that same sign. You keep it positive. 8 plus 2 is 10. And then, since 8 and 2 are both positive, we keep the 10 as a positive 10. And that one's a simple problem that you probably could have done many years ago. But it does help us to understand the process a little bit better. Let's look at number 2. Number 2, they also have the same sign. Negative 5 and negative 3 are both negative. So we're going to do the same process. We're going to add 5 plus 3. 5 plus 3 is 8. That's the first part of the rule. But when they have the same sign, the second part of the rule is you keep the same sign. You add up the numbers and then you keep the same sign. Since negative 5 and negative 3 are both negative numbers, we keep the answer as a negative number as well. So in problem 1, they were both positive. In problem 2, they were both negative. In both cases, you add up the numbers that you see. We added 8 plus 2. And we added 5 plus 3. The second step is you keep whatever sign they gave you. If they give you positive numbers, it's a positive answer. If they give you negative numbers, it's a negative answer. Pause the video and try problem 3. Unpause it when you're ready to go over it. All right, hopefully you've done problem 3. In problem 3, I see 2 negative numbers. That tells me I'm using the rules for same sign. Step 1 is to add up the absolute values. You just pretend they're positive numbers. 9 plus 3 is 12. Step 2 is to keep the same sign. 9 and 3 are both negative, so we make it a negative 12. Now problem 4, we're going to be needing to use our different sign rules because we have one positive number and one negative number. If they have different signs, step number 1 is to subtract the absolute values. So we pretend they're both positive, we pretend they're both 6s, and we subtract them. 6 minus 6 is 0. Step number 2 is to keep the bigger sign. Whatever number is bigger determines if our answer is positive or negative. Well, the numbers are the same, and the answer is 0, so there's not going to be a sign on it. Pause the video and try number 5. Come back when you're ready to check it. All right, hopefully you're ready to check it. These are different signs, 4 and negative 4. So we're going to subtract 4 minus 4. We pretend they're both positive for a second. 4 minus 4 is 0. And then 0 doesn't have a sign. Let's look at number 6. Here they're different signs again, but they're not the same number anymore. So instead of thinking of it as 9 and negative 6, I'm just thinking about it as 9 and 6 because I'm thinking about their absolute values. Step 1 for different signs is to subtract the numbers. So for number 6, I'm going to do 9 minus 6. That equals 3. Then step 2 is to keep the sign of the bigger number. So we have to ask ourselves, is 9 bigger or is 6 bigger? We pretend it's positive 6. 9 is bigger, and 9's positive, so the answer is going to be positive 3. The bigger one will win. Pause the video and try number 7. All right, hopefully you've tried number 7. 7 has 2 numbers with different signs, so we subtract. We're going to think about them both like positive numbers for a moment because that's their absolute value. 5 minus 2 is 3. Step 2 is to keep the sign of the bigger number. 5 is bigger than 2, and 5 is positive, so the answer is 3. I'd like you to pause the video and finish up this section, so do 8 through 13, and play the video when you're ready to go over them. All right, hopefully you've completed 8 through 13. Let's talk about it. So on number 8, we have different signs. Step 1 for different signs is you subtract their absolute values. So I'm pretending it's a 7 and a 13. 13's bigger, so I'm going to be doing 13 minus 7. That's 6. Step 2 is to keep the sign of the bigger number. 13 is bigger than 7, and 13's negative, so it's negative 6 is the answer. On number 19, they're also different signs, so I'm going to subtract. 18 minus 1 is 17. The bigger number is 18, and it's negative, so negative 18. Negative 17 as the answer. On number 10, they're same sign, so the rule is to add them instead of subtracting them. 12 plus 5 is 17, and then the rule is to keep the same sign. They're both negative, so negative 17. Number 11, 0 doesn't have a sign, so you could really think about this as same sign or different signs. You'll get the same answer. I'm going to think about it as different signs just because I see that one of them's negative and one of them doesn't have a sign, but it doesn't matter. 7 minus 0 is 7. The bigger number is 7, which is negative, so it's a negative 7. Number 12, they're different signs. That means I need to subtract. 15 minus 12 is 3. I put the bigger number first, 15 minus 12. Then I keep the sign of the bigger number. 15 is bigger than 12, and 15 is negative, so it's negative 3. On number 13, it's a word problem. So we see that we have negative $21 in our account, and we deposit 50. That's plus 50. Remember, positive. Deposit is positive. What's the new balance? So the problem is going to be negative 21 plus 50. They're different signs, so I'm going to be subtracting. You do not need to do this work in your head. It's totally acceptable to write it out to the side. 50 minus 21, I need to borrow. And 10 minus 1 is 9. 4 minus 2 is 2. That's going to give me 29, and the bigger number is 50, which is positive, so it's positive 29. I hope you did well in those examples. Let's try some triples. So we're going to be ignoring these rules that say tell how the commutative and associative properties of addition can help. We're not going to be worried about that, but I'm going to explain kind of what it means because it is a helpful trick. The commutative property is a rule that says if you add up a bunch of numbers, you could add them in any order that you want to. This might be familiar to you from elementary school. If you did a problem like 2 plus 9 plus 8, your teacher might have showed you how you could do 2 plus 8 first to get 10, and then you could do 10 plus 9, which is easier to do, to get 19. It's the same thing here. It's just a strategy of adding up the numbers in any order that you want. So in number 14, for example, it might be easiest to add 8 plus negative 8 first. They're opposites. Opposites have a sum of 0. So then you're left just doing 0 plus negative 5. We know that 0 plus anything is just itself. Like 1 plus 0 is 1. A million plus 0 is a million. The 0 doesn't do anything. So we can also just think of the problem like that and get an answer of negative 5. Pause the video and try 15 and 16. Come back when you're ready to check it. All right, hopefully you're ready to check 15 and 16. On 15, I would probably start with the negative 4 plus 4. They're opposites, they cancel out, that gives us 0. 0 plus 9 is 9, and that's your answer. On 16, we don't have an opposite to start with, but what I like to do is add up the numbers with the same sign first. So I would do -5 plus -7 first. Same sign, the rule is you add them up, so that's 12, and then you keep the same sign, so that's -12. So I have -12 plus the other 12 in the problem. Here's an opposite now. -12 plus 12 is 0. Let's look at the next section. What I would do on 17 is the same strategy. I would start with adding the numbers that have the same sign. 7 plus 5 is 12. Then I have 12 and -2 left. Now I would use my different, I wrote -12. There, -2. Now I would use my rules for different signs. For different signs, you subtract the numbers. So 12 minus 2 is 10, and then you keep the sign of the bigger number. 12 is bigger than 2, so I keep the answer positive. 10 would be the answer there. Pause the video and complete this section through 25. Come back when you're ready to go over it. All right, hopefully you're ready to go over it. I'm going to copy and paste our rules down where we're working. So that way I can explain them a little bit easier. So I'm just going to put them right over there. So on problem 18, I would start by adding my two negatives. They're same signs, so you add them up and you keep the same sign. 13 plus 3 is 16. Keep the same sign, that's -16. Plus 7. Now these are different signs, so I need to subtract. 16 minus 7 is 9. Keep the sign of the bigger number, that's negative. The 16 is bigger than the 7, so -9. On number 19, I'm going to start with my two negatives. -5 plus -1. I add them up, so that's 6, and I keep the same sign, so -6. So now I have 17 plus -6. The parentheses are just there to make it look nicer. They don't really mean anything. 17 and 6 have different signs, so I'm going to subtract them. 17 minus 6 is 11. 17 is bigger, that's positive. So positive 11 is my final answer. I keep it positive. The other examples in this section follow the same type of pattern. I don't want to make the video last too long. And then the ones after